I never expected to find solace just across the hallway. My marriage to David had grown quiet, too quiet. After 11 years together, it felt like we were coexisting rather than connecting. Conversations turned into schedules. Affection into routine. We were raising 2 kids, managing bills, and living like distant roommates. And then there was Sam. He moved in next door after a divorce, friendly but reserved. I first met him on a rainy evening when he helped me carry groceries up the stairs. It was nothing special at first, just neighborly kindness, but over the next few weeks we crossed paths more often. I found myself lingering outside my apartment a little longer, hoping for a few stolen moments of casual conversation. One night, while David was away on a work trip, I sat alone on my balcony, wine glass in hand, feeling that familiar ache of loneliness. Sam noticed. He joined me. We talked for hours, about music, travel, regrets, dreams. I opened up more to him in one night than I had to my husband in years. It didn't start with desire, it started with understanding. Sam never pushed, he just listened. He remembered the little things, my favorite kind of tea, that I hated Mondays, that my mother passed away 3 years ago, and I still hadn't cried properly. In contrast, David barely noticed when I changed my hair or when I stopped sleeping well. The emotional intimacy with Sam deepened, quietly and invisibly. We never kissed, never touched beyond casual hugs, but our daily texts, our evening chats, our shared silences, they all said what words didn't. I began to crave Sam's presence. I smiled more around him. I hid the glow he gave me from my husband. Then it all came to light. David found the messages, nothing explicit, but laced with emotion and familiarity that had long vanished between us. He confronted me not with rage, but with hurt. He asked, "Why didn't you talk to me like this anymore?" I didn't have an answer. What followed was a storm of confessions, therapy sessions, and late-night tears. I never physically cheated, but emotionally. I had crossed a line I once believed I never would. I stopped seeing Sam, not out of anger, but out of necessity. That kindness he offered was real, but it wasn't sustainable. It became a wedge in a marriage already full of cracks. David and I are still healing. Together, it's hard, some days impossible. But for the first time in years, we are talking again. Honest, raw, uncomfortable conversations. Maybe we'll make it. Maybe we won't. But I now understand that emotional fidelity is just as vital as physical. That kindness, when received in the void of neglect, can feel like love. And that even the most innocent intentions can lead down roads that change everything. It began with silence, the kind that doesn't shout but eats away slowly. I didn't realize how emotionally distant David and I had become until I stopped expecting warmth in his voice or softness in his touch. Our relationship was built on years of shared goals, parenting duties, and responsibilities that filled our calendar, but left little space for real emotional presence. He was a good man, faithful, hardworking, but emotionally absent. Over time, I stopped trying to tell him how I felt, because I already knew his answer before I even asked. There were no fights, just a cold civility that slowly killed the intimacy we once had. Then Sam moved in next door. He didn't look like a threat to my marriage, just a quiet man with kind eyes and a dog named Max. The first time we spoke was when he knocked on my door to return a package mistakenly delivered to him. I was wearing an old sweatshirt and holding a crying toddler, but he smiled genuinely and said, "Rough day." Something in the way he asked made me want to cry. It had been years since someone asked me that and actually meant it. It was the small things that followed, remembering the name of my favorite wine, asking about my day when I looked drained, texting to check on my daughter when she had the flu. His kindness was casual, never invasive. But in a life where I had grown used to feeling invisible, those small acts lit something inside me I had forgotten existed, the desire to be seen. At first, I rationalized it. We were just talking. Everyone needs a friend. But slowly, the messages became more frequent, and I found myself checking my phone when I woke up. Not to see my husband's good morning text, but to read Sam's thoughtful reply to the photo I'd sent of my new garden flowers. I stopped talking to David about things that made me sad or insecure. I talked to Sam instead. The emotional comfort Sam provided became a lifeline. I would sit on the balcony in the evening, and he would join me with a cup of coffee. We'd talk about nothing and everything, our childhoods, books we were reading, what we feared most in life. I remember once saying, "I don't even recognize who I am anymore," and without hesitation he said, "You're someone worth seeing." It wasn't flirtation. It was validation, and I hadn't felt that from my husband in years. There were no physical boundaries crossed, but emotionally I was fully entangled. I knew I was leaning on Sam in ways I should have leaned on David. But every time I tried to reconnect with my husband, I felt shut down, unheard. The emotional safety with Sam was addicting. It was subtle, intoxicating, and real. I didn't fall in love with Sam. I fell into emotional safety, and that alone was enough to shake the foundation of everything I thought I was holding together. What started as comfort became a secret I carried like a second skin, soft on the outside, suffocating underneath. I told myself it was harmless because there was no physical affair, but deep down I knew I was building a parallel emotional world where my husband didn't exist. That realization didn't come suddenly, it came in fragments. Like when I deleted a message from Sam before David could see it, or when I chose silence at dinner instead of telling David that Sam had helped me through a panic attack I had while he was away. The emotional intimacy with Sam grew into something sacred, something I protected. I didn't want to lose it, but I knew it couldn't last. I felt like I was living in two timelines, one where I went through the motions of being a wife and mother, and another where I was just a woman again, being seen and understood by someone who hadn't stopped looking. Guilt started to seep into the spaces between messages. I'd reread Sam's words late at night and wonder what story I was writing for myself. I hated lying by omission, hated the way my phone felt heavier in my hands when David entered the room. I hated how I started choosing what to share with whom. David still brought me coffee some mornings and kissed me on the forehead, unaware that I had just spent an hour talking to Sam about how lonely I felt being married. Then came the day the truth didn't stay buried. David had been using my laptop to upload school forms for our daughter when a notification from my messaging app popped up. A message from Sam. It wasn't scandalous, but it was personal. Too personal. He clicked through our chat history quietly, painfully, and when I walked into the room, he just looked up with a stillness that felt louder than any scream. I read the messages, he said, voice calm but shaking. "I know you haven't cheated, but you gave something to him you stopped giving to me a long time ago." There was no shouting, just questions that left me hollow. Why didn't you talk to me? Why him? When did I stop being your person? The shame hit like a cold wave. I tried to explain the emotional disconnect, the numbness that led me to seek out Sam's companionship. But the truth was, I had stopped trying with David because I didn't think he'd notice or care. And he had stopped trying with me too, until now. The aftermath was raw. Sam and I stopped communicating that night. I didn't owe him anger, but I did owe my marriage a chance at honesty. David and I went to counseling. We said things we'd never dared to before. Some nights we cried separately. Others we sat in silence, grieving the connection we'd both neglected. The emotional affair didn't ruin us. It revealed us our distance, our loneliness, our fear of confrontation. It exposed the quiet heartbreak we both contributed to. And though we are still piecing things back together, the weight of truth now rests between us, heavy but honest.